everybody. I know we still have some people that are getting connected, so I'm going to just run through a couple of quick things. My name's Elaine Ikeda. I'm with California Campus Compact, and you're participating in a webinar series that is co-hosted by California Campus Compact of the Mountain West, and Utah Campus Compact. So thank you very much for joining us today. I want to just highlight that this is the first of our 2017-2018 academic year webinar series. And so hopefully you'll also be able to join us for some of the upcoming ones. November 14th, we have the Colorado Civic Health Network, which is going to be hosted by Campus Compact of the Mountain West. In December 6th, we're going to focus on the Civic Action Plan that is part of Campus Compact. What have we learned from the Civic Action Plan? January 16th, we're going to focus on a STEM service learning research study that was done by the Cal State University system, and that's called From Research to Action. And then February 6th, we have Rick Battistoni with us who's at Providence College. He's going to be leading our webinar on community or political engagement, educating for democracy in troubled times. And March 15th, 2018, equity and inclusion for the 1%, not that 1%. It's focusing on student veterans in higher education. And then our final webinar for the year will be April 10th, 2018, Engaging Immigrant Communities, featuring folks here at Cal State East Bay, which is also where I'm located. So a couple logistic things. We are going to be recording this webinar, and it will be available a few days after this airing. You will get a link to a YouTube page that will have the video and the recording, as well as an evaluation, so you can evaluate this webinar. And also, I just want to let you know that we've muted the participants so that you will not get any background noise, and you'll just be hearing from the presenters. There will be a question and answer period, the last 15 minutes. So if during the webinar you have any questions, go ahead, and if you put your cursor down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little bar pop up with a Q&A box, and you can type any question you have throughout the webinar at any time. You can type a question in there, and at the end, if that question doesn't get answered during the webinar, then it will get answered at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and do some brief introductions here. Just to be clear, we're all in the right place. This webinar is called Realizing Sustainable Campuses, Resilient Communities, and Meaningful Student Career Pathways. And we're really pleased to have as our guests today partners with Strategic Energy Innovations. SEI is a community partner of California Campus Compacts. We've been working closely with them for about a decade, I believe, and really like to partner with SEI because they do wonderful work, not only in California, but actually across the United States. So you're going to hear today from Stephen Miller, who's the Deputy Director at Strategic Energy Innovations, and has been a wonderful colleague of mine for a number of years, and Jake Pollock, who is the Associate Program Manager at SEI. And also our other presenters today are Rachel Pennington with the Energize Colleges program at University of California, Irvine, Jillian Buchholz, the Director of Sustainability at Cal State University East Bay, and Joe Fullerton, the Energy and Sustainability Manager at the San Mateo County Community College District here in California. So I am going to turn it over to Steve to get us started.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you to the Campus Compact for the opportunity to be with you today and provide some of our perspectives from working in the field with campus and community partners around applied learning opportunities for students and for campuses to take a more leadership role around sustainability issues. I will share with you my screen now just to give us a little better perspective on what we intend to share with you today. Hopefully you can see the title slide here. Really our focus is to talk about how we're at such an interesting moment at this point in time. Both Jake, my colleague, and I, who will be talking to you today, just came off of a national Uci Sustainability in Higher Education campus conference in San Antonio last week, where it really became apparent to us that campuses, more so than ever, are poised to take a greater leadership role around climate, clean energy, and sustainability issues across the country, and to connect with community partners and stakeholders in the process, but also to provide students with deeper learning and a richer experience, both in the classroom, but also out in the campus, in the community, through applied learning opportunities such as internships. So we'll be talking to you about both of those the components, the classroom and the applied learning components that we've been piloting through a variety of models here today. We'll hear from 3 of our campus partners that Elaine referred to earlier, and they'll show how there have been variations on this theme in terms of the value of leveraging assets both on your campus and out in the community, and certainly by providing meaningful applied learning opportunities for students. The examples that you're going to hear today, we feel have value outside of California. Certainly we're in a well-resourced state, but with creative thinking around your campus's situation, interest, and needs, around the assets and resources at your disposal, both on campus and out in the community, and also by simply leveraging the enthusiasm and energy of potential students, current students, and recent graduates. So hopefully we'll touch on those 3 populations in our case studies today. The nonprofit that I am Deputy Director for Strategic Energy Innovations, we are a Bay Area, California-based organization, but we operate nationally, really focused on engaging, empowering, and inspiring our future sustainability leaders by supporting both formal and informal learning opportunities for students and connecting with our campus partners and advancing their sustainability education and resilient communities support along the way. The Energize Colleges program, which is one of 2 models that will be that are underpinning the campus case studies that we'll hear from through our presenters today. This is a statewide program funded by California ratepayers. We have a very rich opportunity in California to leverage electric and gas utility funds through monthly utility bills across the state to provide public purpose programs such as Energize Colleges. The focus is to prepare the state's future energy workforce. The state has ambitious climate and energy goals. We need trained and energized and well-prepared professionals to address those goals over time. It's a 3-year transitional program with the campuses, 12 campuses that we're working with, and you can see a list towards the bottom of the current slide of the schools, public and private schools, and variety of campuses, 2-year to 4-year degree schools that we're working with. By the end of next year, 2018, each of our campuses will be fully owning and institutionalizing both the applied learning internship component and the more formal instructional curriculum development projects that we're engaging with them through this program. Our goal overall between now and the end of 2018 in this 3-year program is to provide 300 unique students with paid internship experience over the course of an academic term, both on campus and out in the community, and also to engage with faculty and faculty teams to support them in innovating around expanding existing courses to provide for project-based learning, for instance, and to also design new courses, certificate and degree programs that connect to the energy careers that we're focusing on for this particular program. moving on, just to give you a little better flavor for the Energize Colleges program, as I mentioned, it has both the applied learning through internships and the more formal learning through deeper classroom and academic program innovation and instruction. And both elements of this program, my team supports actively across our 12 campuses, but we also have a linchpin at each of our schools, a program coordinator, a recent graduate, ideally from that institution, in the form of a fellow through our Climate Corps Fellowship Program. You'll hear from one of our fellows, Rachel, at UC Irvine shortly. And those fellows are the ones that are interacting with students, campus staff, faculty, and community partners to ensure the success of the program and our program goals. In terms of the applied learning aspects of Energize Colleges, we're really looking at providing students with exploration around energy careers. You'll see the 8 different career pathways that are very broad in their focus, everything from technicians and trades to policymakers and management that we're focused on for this program. And the goals of the internships are to provide students with a chance to actually apply what they're learning in the classroom, to put theory into practice, and to actually explore what it would mean to be in a career, in one or more of those energy career pathways, and to actually plan, implement, and assess projects. And the typical internships, they're part-time, 7 to 10 hours a week, paid at the local campus rate, or typically around the minimum wage for that locality. But it's a very intentional process where our fellows are actually recruiting for, managing, supervising the interns, and we have a formal structure for onboarding and training students in their projects and in their roles, and for providing that coaching and mentoring for the students before they finish their internships, and provide reflection through an academic poster that talks about the goals of their internship, the outcomes, and how it has impacted them. An example of one of those posters is in the lower right-hand side of your current slide. So I'll turn it over at this point to my colleague, Jake, to talk to you about the second program model that underpins the 3 campus case studies that you hear from today.
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. It's very exciting to be here to share these program models with you. I'm going to speak just briefly about the Climate Corps Fellowships, as Steve mentioned, are really kind of the linchpin across each campus, and Rachel can attest to that next. The fellowship model is really this opportunity for recent graduates to jump into the field of climate change and sustainability. And oftentimes we hire fellows directly from the schools that they're placed at, creating that bridge to career right from campus, showing them a really viable path of employment from different academic programs that may already exist at their institution. So some of the areas of impact beyond for the fellow themselves and career development are campus departments that often speak of themselves as being staff-starved or understaffed, and really need full-time support of particular sustainability initiatives that wouldn't be able to move forward without additional staff support. So our fellows also, of course, have significant environmental impacts through their projects that save precious resources, not just on the campus, but for our globe, such as water, as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the recent highlights of our program include the current cohort as our largest to date, and actually a third of those fellows are placed in higher ed institutions. The placement rate that we have for fellows coming out of our program is above 80%, and we find that they either go directly into positions in the institution or site that they're placed at, and sometimes go into similar type of roles in the environmental field. So as you can see, we're starting to expand into other states. As Elaine mentioned, other states see the value of this across all different sectors, public and private, and we're able to replicate this quite easily in other regions. Finally, I wanted to mention we've seen expansion not only in the geographic distribution of our fellows, but also in the ways that we engage with communities through these different campuses. So through AmeriCorps in particular, in the same fellowship model, which Jillian will speak about at CSU East Bay, we see an opportunity to do work that's related also to the surrounding communities. So whether it's a municipality, a city, or a county, we're finding that in California in particular, and a number of other states, there are projects that are required by local and state governments around adaptation and climate readiness that our fellows are able to not only assist with, but potentially bring in campus stakeholders, including interns and other faculty. So we see this expansion opportunity as a way to really galvanize those town-gown relations in particular, and show the relevance of the campus to the community and its needs for climate readiness in particular. So one of the other places I'll mention of incredible value in facilities, and Joe will speak to this in greater depth, is that oftentimes the fellows identify and pursue and complete projects that exceed the cost of their fellowship to the campus, usually upwards of 3 times that amount. And these show 2 examples of those types of projects, facilities-based around energy efficiency. And one of them most recently was actually a fellow who did a little bit of research about a cell tower on the top of their building, which it turns out they had not built the cell companies for yet. And so all this energy was being expended, and through their role, they were able to track the energy that was being used and then go back out to the cell phone companies for $40,000 back from the company. And just to spell out really quick, the FICCS, the FIX fellows, these are the facilities, fellows in community college sustainability. So facilities focused fellows.
Terrific. Thanks, Jake. At this point, we're going to keep quiet and hear from our campus representatives that are here with us today. So it's my pleasure to introduce the first one, which is Rachel Pennington, our Energize Colleges fellow at UC Irvine. Rachel is out of UC Irvine's Global Sustainability Resource Center, a student-oriented hub for sustainability efforts on campus. And from there, she coordinates both the internship and the academic projects under Energize Colleges at UC Irvine. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Steve. I'll go ahead and share my screen with you all now. All right. All right. So thank you everyone for being here. My name is Rachel Pennington. I'm the Energize Colleges Fellow at UC Irvine. And so I am a Climate Corps Fellow, as Jake previously talked about, and my placement is at UCI, which is fantastic for me because I'm also a recent UC Irvine graduate. So I can attest to the direct link that I've gotten to experience between leaving the college setting and jumping right into my career and getting to be here at UCI. So I'm going to start with a little bit just about UC Irvine. We serve 34,000 students at our school. We have been named a top 10 cool school by Sierra Magazine for 8 consecutive years as of this year. We've been ranked the #9 public university in the country by US News and World Report. We are the #1 university doing the most for the American dream, according to the New York Times. We have over 22 green-themed clubs on campus, 26 LEED certified buildings, with each new building will be LEED certified by default. And we're the first, nation's first college to convert to an all-electric campus bus fleet. So as you can see, UC Irvine is already a pioneer in higher education sustainability, and so it's really great to leverage the Energize Colleges program to further our sustainability goals. So UCI Sustainability Vision is inclusive of not just environmental sustainability, but reducing our campus's ecological footprint in a way that addresses social, cultural, and economic needs as well. And so the way that we do this is through having our physical global sustainability resource center, which Steve mentioned, and which is where I'm housed today. But we also have evolving pathways in student leadership training, internship and fellowship opportunities, curricular opportunities, and community engagement. And Energize Colleges fits in perfectly to our internship and fellowship opportunities pathway, especially in that it provides paid student opportunities. So these workforce development opportunities for students are really invaluable. And so I'm going to jump right in and talk about those internships. So far in the 7 months of our program, we've had 11 unique internships, and we've reached numerous career pathways that Steve mentioned earlier. Environmental engineering, students working on solar, energy auditing, management and policy. Just this fall, we have interns working in climate science research, working for a private startup that recycles plastic waste into 3D printing material. We have an intern working in environmental planning, and another working at a local nonprofit in the clean tech industry. And we have some other interns working on campus energy management projects. And another great thing about Energize Colleges and why it works so well at UCI is that each internship contributes to our larger campus goals. So one of these goals is the UC-wide Carbon Neutrality Initiative. And this is a goal set by the UC Office of the President to have the entire UC system be net carbon neutral on certain emissions by 2025. So it's a really aggressive goal, and being able to provide pathways for student engagement and involvement in this has been really invaluable. And we also have interns working on our UCI community resilience projects. And so community resilience at UCI really intentionally seeks to lift up voices of community members that have been disproportionately affected by our changing climate, and utilize their perspectives in sustainability and sustainable development. So I'm going to highlight a couple of our past and present internships. This is Erin and Paula at UCI Housing Sustainability. Erin and Paula created a program called the Green Room Certification. And what this is a green certification that students can receive in their on-campus housing. So 85% of freshmen at UCI live on campus. And so we're trying to leverage that and teach them ways to be sustainable early on. And so what Paula and Erin identified is small changes that students can make in their rooms, their physical dorm rooms, and they go out and they audit these rooms and look for ways that students can improve their energy efficiency and be more green, and then provide incentives and rewards for students that get audited again and improve their green living. And so I'm going to not read this, but these slides will be available later on. But this is straight from Aaron's words and his perspective. And I think what really resonated with both him and Paula is that they wanted a platform for students to be recognized for their efforts to be green. And I think that this program will be really successful in doing that. We're piloting that this fall, and I'm really excited about that. So as Steve talked about, each intern completes a poster highlighting what they did over the course of their internship. And this is Aaron's poster. One other thing I want to point out, I know it's very busy. He did a lot. One thing that him and Paula noticed as they were doing their research on UCI housing sustainability is an immense potential energy and cost savings just in campus residential laundry use. And so that's a project that we're now getting to work on with facilities, is leveraging this accidental discovery by these interns. So what they did is going to live on long after their internships have been completed. So one other intern that I want to spotlight is Brandon at Grid Alternatives. And Brandon has just begun his internship, but the really special story about him is that early on when I had just began my work at UCI, Brandon came to me and said, "Hey, have you heard of Grid Alternatives?" And I had sort of heard of them, but I wasn't working with them. And he told me, you know, I am very interested in sustainability, and I've even started my own club on campus, Engineers for a Sustainable World, but I'm looking for a way to really extend my impact beyond UCI, and I would love to work with Grid Alternatives. And Energize Colleges allowed me to make that connection for him, and he is now currently interning at Grid Alternatives doing solar installation and community outreach. So I think that that's a testament to the unique opportunities that this program provides for students. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to be able to provide these opportunities. So another component of the Energize Colleges program is our academic infusion. So we work with faculty to try to expand energy and sustainability curriculum on campus. And we even have micro grants that we can give out to help faculty in doing so. We've had 2 faculty grants so far at UC Irvine, one through our Campus as a Living Lab course. And Campus as a Living Lab is actually adapting curriculum from Energize Schools, which is the K-12 sister program of Energize Colleges. And they are using the curriculum that teaches students how to build solar USB chargers to help their students learn the basics of solar technology. The second academic project we have going on right now is the Bending the Curve pilot course. And Bending the Curve was a report developed by over 50 UC researchers on 10 scalable solutions for carbon neutrality and climate stability. And what we're doing with them is helping create an opportunities database for student involvement beyond the course. And that's going to be piloted in winter quarter of 2018. So beyond our internships and our academic infusion, we strive to help our interns engage with their campus and community. We partnered with the Global Sustainability Resource Center and tabled at UCI's new student orientation, and we reached over 1,000 students with this program. And another great thing about the partnership that we have with the Global Sustainability Resource Center is that we have been able to off the bat institutionalize this program. So having a physical house for this program has been key to our success and to our outreach. Each intern engages with high school students as a requirement for their internship. And over the summer, we reached over 75 high school students. So as you may know, it's difficult to reach high school students in the summer, but we were able to do so. And we found a great batch of students nearby UCI who got to see what it was like and hear what it was like from pursuing sustainability. So the next steps for UC Irvine, institutionalizing the program. So not just having a physical home for the program, but also securing funding. As Steve talked about, there's kind of a 3-year transitionary period, and we're in the middle of that right now. We want to continue building strong campus and community partnerships so that we can continue to have high quality internships for students. We want to have more professional development opportunities for interns. So just last week, some of the interns let me know they're really interested in having a LinkedIn workshop. So we try to provide them with those resources as well so that they're successful beyond their internship. We want to continue our collaborations with faculty, and I want to continue working on alumni tracking as well. So we just had an intern last week from this summer that got a job at an environmental engineering firm, and she hasn't even graduated yet. So I'd love to see where these interns go beyond the Energize Colleges program. So that is all I have for you. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it back on to Steve.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate the examples that you shared with us just now. To keep things moving, we'll turn it over to Jillian Buchholz, Director of Sustainability at CSU East Bay. Jillian is actually the first Director of Sustainability at the university there, and she has supervised a Climate Corps Fellow to complete their climate action plan. So Jillian, without further ado, please take it away.
Great, thanks. Okay, so hey everybody. Thanks for taking the time today to join us on this webinar. As Steve mentioned, I'm Jillian Buchholz, Director of Sustainability at Cal State East Bay. I've been on this campus since 2014, and that's really been the start of the sustainability program here. And I'm going to walk you through our climate action planning process, which involves having a Climate Corps Fellow, which has really been integral to the program. I do want to share just a little bit about Cal State East Bay. We are located in Hayward, California, in the East San Francisco Bay, about halfway between Oakland and San Jose. We're a campus of about 16,000 students, where only about 1,500 live on campus. So largely people are commuting to campus to get here. And we're one of the 23 CSU schools. So we're part of the larger Cal State system throughout the state of California. And with that, so right when I came to Cal State East Bay, our president signed the carbon commitment, and I've done a lot of work to fulfill the requirements of the carbon commitment by working through classes and with students and with faculty. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then also how the carbon commitment really prompted the campus to start a campus sustainability committee to also continue the work for the requirements related to the carbon commitment. And then throughout that process, how we were lucky enough to come in contact with a Climate Corps Fellow program. I'm going to be able to hire a fellow who's been really just invaluable throughout the process. So our president, featured here, President Leroy Marisha, signed the carbon commitment back in January of 2015. And ever since then, it has really laid the framework or groundwork, if you will, for what sustainability should be focusing on our campus. For those of you that aren't familiar, there's a not-for-profit called Second Nature that has several commitments related to carbon neutrality. The carbon commitment is one of them, and once your president signs that, it sets up what you need to be doing to reach your goal of carbon neutrality. One of the things that we have to do at Cal State East Bay is an annual greenhouse gas inventory, and what better project to do through a class of students. So I've worked really closely with our environmental studies program, particularly the director, Dr. Karina Garbisi, and a couple of her classes, applied field studies, and also senior seminar courses to do the real work associated with the carbon commitment. It's a great experience for students to learn in the classroom these tangible skills that they can take into the workforce with them. So there was the applied field studies class that did the first greenhouse gas inventory, and it was really those data that informed the next class, the environmental studies senior seminar course. And these courses were about a year apart. I believe spring was the first course, and then the following spring was the next one. And the greenhouse gas inventory really informed the climate action planning course. So in the greenhouse gas inventory course, students did a lot of legwork using the Clean Air Cool Planet carbon calculator to collect metrics, meet people on campus that collect this information, and then determine where our emissions are coming from. And once we knew where our emissions were coming from, we could then determine what is the plan to bring our emissions down to zero and what year are we going to do that by. So while these courses are happening, because the carbon commitment was signed, you're required to have some sort of governing entity to make sure you're meeting the requirements of the commitment, and that's the Campus Sustainability Committee. Our Campus Sustainability Committee is co-chaired by our provost and our vice president of finance and administration, and there are about 20 people that sit on the committee. We have folks from the city of Hayward Unified School District, also several directors and associate vice presidents to represent every single entity on campus. The idea being that when we have our quarterly meetings, the folks in those meetings can make decisions. And while we realize that quarterly meetings aren't, meeting often enough to actually get a lot of the work done, we have roll-off task forces from the larger Campus Sustainability Committee that anyone can be involved in. One of those is a climate action planning task force. So with the seniors seminar course, really what the students focused on was, researching what other campuses are doing with climate action planning, drafting chapters, and suggesting action items. And if you're working on a climate, I recommend doing as much as you can through a course. Working with students is really rewarding, but also the amount of work you're able to get done in a short amount of time is pretty impressive versus one person just working on it or a small committee of people. And through the work that the students were able to do, especially because we had some continuity between the two classes of students that worked on the greenhouse gas inventory and now the climate action plan, we had students that were really invested in the work, wanted to see it go through, and staff on campus knew who they were and were pretty forthcoming with information that the students need. And also this type of planning as a sustainability professional, I can tell you, is something I look for when I'm hiring staff. I've been on hiring committees for other sustainability staff, and also when hiring student interns, if they have this practical experience, it's really highly valuable. So we've got the course doing their work, but then we have this sort of larger entity that's really responsible for the climate action planning work. And as I mentioned, sort of the outline of the Campus Sustainability Committee, it's really the Climate Action Planning Task Force that was charged with working on developing the draft of the Climate Action Plan, and they could not have done it without the work that the students had done already. And again, the members of our task force are representatives from our associated students, our student government here at Cal State East Bay, the City of Hayward, myself, representatives from facilities, development and operations, 2 faculty in construction management and environmental studies, and then also from parking and transportation. And again, it's really the students' work that prompted the task force to take that information and further develop it. So that's where we bring in Brett. Brett is our fantastic, wonderful Climate Corps fellow. So Brett was involved in the classes, as I mentioned, and she had been doing a lot of work with the greenhouse gas inventory and climate action planning. And after the climate action planning course concluded, there were 3 or 4 students that really stuck with it, and they really wanted to be involved in the process just to get the practical experience, but they were volunteering. There wasn't a real opportunity for me to bring students on officially. I was still sort of figuring out what the process was going to be like and bringing people in. And that's when I ran into Steve. I think it happened pretty serendipitously. Steve and I have been working together for a long time on several different sustainability programs at different campuses. And Steve mentioned this really great program, and I said, hey, why don't you come on down to East Bay and let's meet and talk about it. And I didn't really understand at the time how much benefit this was going to bring to the process of climate action planning. Several campuses like Cal State East Bay have one sustainability officer that's charged with a lot of different tasks, and I'm not able to spend my 40 plus hours a week dedicated to one thing. And that's something a climate action plan Brett on. One, her experience as a student through the class that did the climate action planning. And then also now that she was an alum, we could really create that bridge that was mentioned earlier about being a student and then getting that first job out of school that gives you that tangible experience. And then also she had not only the background and knowledge, but the time to really dedicate to the climate action plan that I just haven't had solely because of just other projects and demands in my role. But Brett has been really excellent. She has had regular meetings with myself during the academic year. And then over the summer, Brett, myself, and Krina Garbizzi, who I mentioned before, the Director of Environmental Studies, the 3 of us met every week for at least 2 hours and really designed what the climate action plan was going to look like. And Brett was really leading most of that effort. Her primary roles were research, draft, review, presenting her findings, and then we would sort of figure out what the next plan was to get things done. Brett's Climate Corps Fellowship ended at the end of this summer, and she's actually been volunteering her time to see the project through, which is pretty impressive. We're on track right now. The Campus Sustainability Committee will be reviewing our climate action plan first draft in November, and then we should be set to submit in May, which is pretty exciting. But I would just really recommend the program. I mean, it's great when you can have multiple students working on things. The Energize College model seems wonderful, but even just having that one person that can really dedicate the time has been exceptional. And I know the professional development opportunities that Brett has received as well through SEI and the Climate Corps Fellow program has been really valuable for her. She's participated in webinars, gone to meetings, having to give presentations and things like that, which I think she had the background academically to do this work, but now she's getting that real professional development opportunity as well. So with this, I will pass it back.
Thank you, Jillian. What a great example that you provided for us. We appreciate that. Last but not least, Joe Fullerton, the Energy and Sustainability Manager at San Mateo County Community College District, is our final campus presenter. Joe actually bridges both program models that we just spoke about, the Energize Colleges and the Climate Corps Fellowships. Joe actually is, I can say this in all sincerity, is the father of our facilities-based fellowship program in community colleges and now in universities, placing dedicated emerging professionals with facility staff to plan and implement needed resource efficiency and savings projects over time. So Joe and his team have also worked with our Energize Colleges interns out of Skyline College in San Mateo in facilities and energy saving projects across their district. So Joe, thank you for being with us and for your support over the years, and please share with us your view from the bridge.
Yeah, well, I guess the Fellowship in Community College Sustainability is actually my first child, and I have a young son since then. So now 2 kids. So glad to be part of this program and have helped develop it. It really came out of something that I observed very early on in my own facilities career, which was one, that there was a lot of folks that were about to retire in my organization, or ready to retire, or were retiring, or had just retired, and there was on-field positions. And we see this kind of across California in general. And if you look at all institutions, public, private, et cetera, and particularly in the facilities management career spectrum, this is the case. We have an aging population. This represents really an opportunity for our emerging professionals to get engaged in really critical roles. We also have other shifts happening. Obviously, you're all familiar with things like technology shifts, and if you're in a school environment, pedagogical shifts in the way things are managed and directed. And that's things that we're dealing with. And if we don't insert sustainability professionals in these organizations now, we may just be subject to a whole nother generation of kind of unsustainable practices. So I had this interest in sustainability, and I had this interest in facilities management, kind of combined them two, and saw this and seeing this gap and saying, look, we really need to develop this professional expertise so that we can grow our facilities professionals in the right way. Service employees in general and public service employees in general are particularly in the management and supervisor realm are shifting. This is from the California Office of Workforce Development. And there's lots of more information on this you can find pretty easily on the web. Here's some results from a study that was done by that same organization.
Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to let you know you're not sharing your screen, so we're not seeing your PowerPoint.
Oh, wonderful. Well, for those of you on the phone, you just got the full game. So my apologies, everybody. I thought I hit the button. Let me see. Okay. Good to go there?
Yep, thank you.
So I'll just flip through those first few slides. Nothing really drastic here, but you can see aging population, more, that demographic shift that I was talking about, and some of those other shifts I haven't represented in graphs. And this particular slide really shows the need that the facility management workforce is seeing. These first 3 areas of government and local regulations, internal workers, and a not sufficient pool of qualified candidates was really some of the data that I was looking at to say, we need a program to address this. We need something more holistically to address this problem. And this is a great opportunity for a sustainability professional, somebody that has a systems view, somebody that has a strategic thinking competency, somebody that can anticipate the needs of the organization, somebody that can normalize the adjustments and identify the opportunities for change in the organization, and then communicate those and actionize them within the organization. And so when I was looking at this type of information, I knew for sure that we had to solve it system-wide. And for those that don't know, California community colleges in California serve about 2 million students. That's the largest higher educational system in the nation, very close to the largest educational system in the world, higher educational system in the world. So there's a tremendous opportunity to not only impact the organizations that we're working with from a facilities management perspective, but also because of the program and how it's developed, using campus as a living laboratory, and a lot of the things that the previous presenters have talked about in terms of integrating sustainability programs. There's a tremendous impact potential for those 2 million students in our California community colleges. We're already talking to national other organizations nationally about replicating this program through various partnerships. So there's a lot of potential for replication here, and a lot of potential for positive impact. I'm just going to tell a quick story. So here's one of my favorite pictures of our fellows from last year. I had Denise on the left-hand side. join us as a half period fellow, which was a 6-month fellowship. She came in January, and she served as our Green Office Associate, creating a pilot to basically look at things like plug loads and efficiencies in creating green offices. And this was really around engaging staff and faculty around practices that they could implement in their workplaces to become a little bit greener. And that's a stepwise process that we're taking them through, and we're still early on. Julie on the right is the primary focus of today's conversation. She was a full-time fellow for a complete 10 months, and she helped develop a net zero energy strategy or zero net energy strategy. Not everything that they did was about play and looking at desserts. You can see Denise and Julie here sitting in close proximity. Their desks were always a mess, but that's okay because they worked hard and were really dedicated to their work. Some of the results that Julie developed came from an ongoing project that we had to sub-meter our buildings. We have 82 buildings, about 2 million square feet, and just a lot of stuff to manage. Roads, pipes, lights, you name it. Think of a small city, that's essentially a college campus, right? And so Julie was really instrumental in helping us define and refine that sub-metering strategy, making sure that meters in this particular photo were calibrated and programmed correctly. And she was also extracting data from them as she went so that she could develop a zero net energy strategy. Julie is one of a number of fellows throughout the community colleges in the Bay Area, and there's a number of them now. It's grown from year to year. When we started this program back in 2013-14 time period, there was one fellow here at San Mateo, and since we've grown that 7 times in the last couple of years. So it's replicating. We're showing success. I have some other figures in terms of the value that our fellows have brought to our organization and what that's actually meant in terms of not only operational efficiencies, but also in terms of academic and infusion. And there's a really interesting bunch of work that the current group of fellows is working on now. And we're really excited to have our first beyond. We're going to have to adjust the acronym, I guess, because it's just going to be college sustainability, I think, with UC Santa Cruz joining the mix. But Julie's focus was really around connecting this net zero energy strategy. She also was involved in writing a couple of different grants, with successfully, including a $110,000 grant that will get to implement a plug load controls project, as well as an EV charging station grant from the Air Quality Management District here in the Bay Area. She helped us get an award, a national award from the Association of Excellence in Facilities Management in Higher Education in 2017. That was actually the second time that we got that award. And in 2014, we got that award as well. And the fellow that was involved at that time period also drafted that award nomination process. So there's definitely some good writing skills there. Lots of kilowatt hour savings identified here, and therms, and of course carbon as well. We do have a comprehensive set of sustainability oriented goals. Of course, those are environmental, economic, as well as social justice oriented. On the operational side, those things look like the typical things like energy, water, waste goals. We have a net zero energy goal by 2030. We have a 50% reduction in potable water by 2025, and a zero carbon goal by 2030 as well, and waste in that same time period. So we have some pretty big steps to take, and our fellows are really helping us get there. It's pretty obvious to me when I first joined, and even more obvious now, that without the capacity of the fellows, that we would be almost literally hamstrung in being able to do all the work that we need to do to quote unquote institutionalize sustainability, to create the campus as a living laboratory, to coordinate the community events, to drive the internal change, to do the higher level decision making and strategy development. All those things need to happen. The planning, the doing, and the reacting all need to happen simultaneously in an organization like ours, and I'm sure like yours as well. So that's what we're doing, and our fellows are helping us do that, and they're gaining valuable work experience as they are. All the fellows that we've employed here at San Mateo County Community College District have gone on to really fantastic careers. Our first fellow went on to join PG&E. She's now a senior program manager. We have a project manager in a commercial lighting organization that serves municipalities in their exterior lighting. We have another fellow that is working actually here in our district as a project engineer. And there's other success stories out there for sure. So we're really excited to be part of this program and to help replicate it, growing hopefully beyond the 7 organizations that are involved now to many others. And I think there's a tremendous potential for this program to replicate and have success in other organizations like our own. I think that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Joe. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm going to provide our contact information as a screen share currently, and hopefully you can see that. I just want to conclude by saying through the 3 campus presenters and case studies that you heard, I think they did a terrific job just walking us through how the campus can act as or the district, in Joe's case, can act as the true sustainability leader through looking at campus operations, climate action planning, and campus as a living lab opportunities, through looking at project-based learning and curriculum innovation opportunities with partnership and with faculty, and finally by looking at campus and community internships, fellowships, and other truly applied learning opportunities for students. The examples we mentioned to you, as I referenced earlier, we have the benefit of investor-owned utility support here in California through California ratepayer funds, but our programs our campuses are coming in over time to support financially the program as well, leveraging a variety of campus and community-based financial resources, and in the case of our facilities-focused fellowships, making the case for funding those fellows outright. I also want to mention, especially for the internships, there's a variety of pathways that campuses could pursue if funding is not readily available through for-credit and certainly volunteer options. The richness of the internship experience is one that we've been able to successfully market to and recruit students in all 3 of those, paid, for-credit, and volunteer options here in California. With that, Elaine, I'd like to turn it over to you to help us to guide through any questions and also to hear from any of our webinar participants to hear about what their campuses are exploring, other models that could be helpful for this conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. It was a great presentation. I want to invite the participants who are listening, or I know we're going to try and unmute everyone since there's not that many participants. We thought if we can manage to unmute. So I know Piper's going to try and do that, and I'm not sure we'll be able to actually do that. We're down to only 1 phone call person anyway. But if you have any questions, please go ahead and type that into the Q&A box. I do have a quick question to start us off while we wait and see if any of our participants have any questions. But I'm just curious if you all can share some strategies that you've used to recruit your fellows or interns. You know, was it really easy to find the students who wanted to get involved? I know some of you talked about having college clubs, but if you could just say a little bit about how easy it was or difficult, or were there any challenges, or what strategies did you use to recruit the students that participated in your programs?
Yeah, so I can talk about that a little bit at UCI. UCI has a ton of sustainability-oriented opportunities already. But a lot of our sustainability efforts have been top down in a way that they go on behind closed doors, and students don't have a lot of opportunity for involvement on many of the larger sustainability projects. So I think students were really hungry for that opportunity. And so what we did was advertise them through various avenues via our Global Sustainability Resource Center, via Student Affairs, and we combined them. We partnered with other opportunities that were recruiting at the same time. So we got to advertise for students interested in energy and sustainability, but also for other projects on campus, and that worked really well.
Great. Steve, you have to unmute.
I would just add that, thank you, Rachel, that for recruiting recent graduates into the fellowship programs, we rely on our campuses and our partners there to tell us what are the best pathways for engaging with recent graduates. And in addition, we leverage Craigslist, certainly, as well as Handshake. We have, that's a centralized sort of platform for connecting with career services and other key student and recent graduate communications channels at each of our campuses.
One bridge I would just add there really quick is actually a unique situation here in Marin with College of Marin. Because we have a School of Environmental Leadership, which is a high school-based program, we find that a lot of the graduates from the high school program, as well as students who are involved in energy savings competitions. Rachel mentioned Energize Schools. So through that program in particular, we have high school students who have the opportunity to look at resource savings in facilities in particular. And a lot of them are interested in these programs in higher ed. And we have a number of interns actually who came directly from those programs as well.
Great, thanks. Joe, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, we kind of have a mix. We don't have any on-campus housing. We have as a community college, we have very permeable barriers. This is not only for our students, but also for our staff. A lot of our faculty, for example, or adjunct faculty, they may be working full-time, et cetera. So we have to be very mindful about how we mechanize our sustainability initiatives. And so we've been very concentrated on creating partnerships with not only directly with faculty, but also with programs within our academic programs, and really putting out kind of a call for projects to those departments to say, look, we have this idea, we could really use some help with this. Is this something that you or your students might be interested in doing? So we kind of look at that internally in terms of advertising for our sustainability initiatives on campus. And we've had tremendous response. It's honestly, we don't really even have to advertise anymore. People now know us and they come to us with their ideas, and it's more actually about understanding what their capacity needs are and then helping meet them. And with a small team in a relatively complex, large organization, that's really hard to do. So we'd be very selective and careful about harnessing the students' desires and passions while also honing them down to something realistic and doing something that's beneficial for the academic as well as the operational side of the organization and ultimately for the whole organization, right? So there's this careful balance of how projects formulate, where they formulate from, and then steering them in the right direction. And we've created a couple mechanisms to do that, which really help formulate viable efforts. And as a facilities professional, maybe it's a little bit egocentric to think this, but a lot of the efforts ultimately do come back down to some type of facilities effort, whether it be installing a sign or planting a new tree or whatever it is, some type of sustainability effort. Changing the food system delivery in the cafeteria ultimately comes down to something nuts and bolts at the end of the day, for the most part. So those partnerships with those people are really important for us to help us make those connections.
Great, thanks very much. Again, for our participants, if you have a specific question, please type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen so we can make sure to answer your specific question. usually our participants like to find out one of the biggest challenges that our campuses face is funding to support the program. So if you all want to say anything, especially because you've been fortunate to have been funded by energy companies in California, wonder if as you're looking to expand outside of California, what other options might there be for securing resources for these kinds of programs? Or specifically, for as you're branching out into other states, where are you looking for funding?
Sure, Jake and I could take the lead there, but then I'd be curious to hear from the other presenters. Since our work with each of our campuses is transitional over time, we are actively engaging in that resource, sort of creative resource identification and funding support discussion over time. But we're finding as we're working with our campuses here in California and looking to work with those outside the state, there's a variety of potential funding support channels through departmental funds. If we can connect an internship or a particular project to an initiative that's already in play that has a grant or departmental budget associated with it, clearly that's a path that we look to pursue. Also, oftentimes our colleges themselves or universities have campus-wide funding grants and initiatives, such as a President's Fund or a Green Revolving Fund. So looking to tap into that, and certainly not changing our program or the structure to address those funding parameters, but really tailoring what we're doing to make sure we speak to their goals. Also, a lot of the work we're doing with community colleges is career technical education based. And there are grant funds and other pots of money here in the state, but also nationally and outside of California that we're looking to tap into. So workforce development focused funding channels, private and public. And I would say the community partnerships that we're forming through the internship projects, we are now in our second year of providing interns to a number of community partners. We're asking the partners themselves on campus and in the community to start to monetize the value that the interns are bringing them and to really put up some skin in the game to benefit from the very structured and value-added projects that and oversight of the interns that this program provides. But Joe, Rachel, and Jillian, welcome additional thoughts.
I think for a lot of organizations, that's, it's kind of the $1 million question or whatever the fee is, right? So how do you fund these programs? The partnerships and the collaborations is the best way if you don't have the internal resources. But I think the bigger question is from a sustainability professional's perspective, what is the best way to think about it? Or to talk about it within your organization, and many of you, I'm sure, know this. But thinking about how does a position like this help the organization mitigate risk? How does it create business value, and how does it serve to connect to the audiences that the business addresses on a regular basis? And if you can find value in 1, 2, or 3 of those areas and explain that within your organization, there's likelihood for a funding opportunity internally. And if you can't get that funding internally, then explaining those same 3 things externally to an external funding mechanism is as important and valuable as well. So those same 3 kind of categories will serve anybody well.
Rachel or Jillian, did you want to add anything?
The case in Cal State East Bay is quite different with the past question and this question too. Cal State East Bay came into the Climate Core program a little late after it started. We came in about halfway through. And because we were already working with Brett, she just seemed like the ideal candidate to hire. And really the funding was secured through just the general fund that supports the Office of Sustainability. We just had a shift in a couple of priorities that opened up some funding, and we were able to use it to hire Brett.
Rachel, nothing?
Yeah, I think Steve touched on some of the at, and having outside and inside campus partners monetize the value of the interns. We're also looking for various other internal funding sources right now, but as Joe said, that is the $1 million question.
Thanks. So let's see. The only other question probably, the only other question I'll have, and then if we don't have any questions coming in from our participants, we can go ahead and end the webinar. But I guess if you could say a little bit more. I know you, Steve, you talked about the Marin SL having I might be saying the name wrong, but having a high school connection point. But, and I know Rachel mentioned also working with high school. So can you say anything about why you've included a high school connection as an intentional part of Energize Colleges?
Sure, I can address that. So, I think, the high school connections are really that one of the more unique aspects of the program, in that we're helping the campus programs with enrollment, first of all, and an opportunity to do the outreach and provide a real world and very tangible example of what these energy careers look like. For students at that developmental stage, they often are committed to working in the sustainability field and working somehow for the environment, but it's hard for them to conceptualize what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So being able to hear from their near peers, so somebody who's maybe only a few years older than them, but has an actual experience, working in an internship, and some of that baseline knowledge that they would need to jump into the field is really unique, I think, to this program. I haven't seen other programs that really span the arc from high school all the way through early career. So we want to make sure to integrate it so that it's realistic, and that it's not simply a professor who's kind of describing, potentially a snapshot of the field maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but it's somebody who's really dynamic and engaged and in the field currently, and kind of very much up to date. So we bring that kind of unique perspective through the interns, but also this bridge between really kind of the living laboratory model and institutionalizing this program. It means that the high school students can see the campus as an opportunity to really pursue their career. So they recognize the value in going to a school where they're not only going to be supported with programs that spark their interest intellectually, but also have opportunities where they really can emerge with some professional experience and to jump right into the field.
Thanks, Jake. The only thing I'll add is as a workforce development organization, we see that the choices that students in junior high and high school are making are critical to their future. And we are similarly mission driven to providing information and positive experiential learning for students at all ages, but particularly at that formative stage, and in this case, high school into college, so that the students are at least aware and familiarize themselves with options that they have for careers and how their local college or university might provide some of the options for them as they're choosing what they're going to be doing after high school. So we're grateful that the utilities insisted that high school connections were a component of our Energize Colleges program, but we already knew the importance of that. And Rachel, in particular, since you're connecting with high school students through the Energize Colleges program at Irvine, I'm curious what your perspective on that might be.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Particularly what Jake touched on is, interns aren't that far out age-wise or career-wise from high school students. So I think it doesn't feel as daunting seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when you're hearing from someone who's not that far ahead of you in the process. And I think additionally at UCI, we have a really diverse range of interns, not all coming from STEM or from environmental science. And I think they've been key in communicating to high school students that if you're interested in sustainability or the energy sector, there's a place for you regardless of if you identify yourself as someone interested in STEM or science or environmental science. So I'm really glad that they can personify that. But yeah, I think just that getting to hear it from a peer or from a college student versus from your teacher is really memorable and valuable for the high school students.
Great, thank you. So before we wrap up, I just want to check in with Jake, Steve, Rachel, Joe, or Jillian. Do you have any final last words that maybe there was something you forgot to mention that you want to make sure you do mention?
Actually, I will say one thing. I did a poor job talking up the fact that all of our internship case studies and final posters, along with write-ups of our faculty projects and academic curriculum innovation partnerships with faculty, continue to be built out and uploaded to the program website, energizecolleges.org, that you see towards the bottom of the screen that we're sharing, slide that we're sharing currently. So between now and this time next year, we anticipate that those resources will be continued to be populated. Please sign up for our monthly newsletter, both for Energize Colleges and the quarterly newsletter for Climate Corps, and through our main website. You could access those communications channels as well.
I'll just add very quickly, one, thanks Steve and Jake and all for hosting and putting this together. Really informational to hear what's going on at UCI and right across the bay with Jillian. Thank you both. You know, the people that are on this call and the people that are on this panel probably all recognize and understand the magnitude and complexity of the issues that we're dealing with as a society, both environmental, socially, as well as economically. And in order to solve those problems, we really need to immediately train the leaders, the sustainability leaders of the future, the people that can think through those complex problems, understand the solution sets that will resolve them, and address the myriad impacts that that inaction will result in. And so this work is important. It's really timely, and it's urgent that we're successful. So no pressure.
Rachel or Jillian, did you want to say any last words?
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone listening. And I totally agree with Joe. I think opportunities for learning by doing are critical. And I think that's what's making these programs successful.
I'd agree, and just say really having the student focus with all the time through the Climate Corps program has pushed our climate action plan much further along in the process than it would have been without. So it's been a really valuable program here, and I'm happy to answer questions outside of the webinar if people want to get in touch.
Great segue. So I want to, again, if you can see the screen, you have the contact information for our panelists. And as I mentioned before, we will be sending, all who registered will receive an email, both with a evaluation form, but also in a few days, a link to the webinar. So in case you want to share it with somebody else, it will be on the YouTube channel, and we'll send that link out to everyone in a few days. I want to thank all of our panelists. It was wonderful to have you on. I'll ask you to stay on the call after Piper ends the recording and we close out the webinar. So if you can just hold on a little bit.